Gun you don't need a permit for in upstate New York. Cheap, good home defense gun that most anybody can afford and most of everybody's heard of. Pump action shotgun. But more importantly, more specifically, the Maverick 88. This is the Maverick 88. Pretty sure it's based off of the Mossberg 500. I think it's made in Turkey. This is a tried and true weapons platform. Your iconic bad guy not gonna want to come into the house after he hears that. The reason I chose this gun is because I had it laying around. I have other shotguns, but this one is very inexpensive with the record high inflation, with people not being able to pay their bills, with the war going on in Iran, diesel being almost $5 a gallon, gas being getting more expensive. States like California and others, gas is like $6 a gallon. Probably gonna become more with the war. A lot of people, even people that I know that are really not into guns, are now asking about guns, asking how to defend themselves, asking about water purification. This is something that's inexpensive that with the right ammunition, with hooligans and savages that are going to come try to affect your family, come and try to break into your home, this is something that will stop the threat. You have ammunition that within like 10 yards, 20 yards, most of the, with buckshot, most of those things, if you're aiming center mass up at close range, that person's probably not going to survive. It's not like they're getting shot by a handgun, they're getting shot by some of these things. They're probably not going to make it. So in New York State, if you didn't know, after the Buffalo shooting, I know we always reference that because, you know, their assault weapons ban didn't stop that shooting, so they had to go a step further and make it so you have to have a permit. You have to pretty much have your pistol permit, which is very, very strenuous to get. You got to be 21. You got to have 4 character references in your county, notarize a form. You got to take an 18-hour course. You got to get fingerprinted on your own dollar. You have to take passport quality photos. You have to do all these things within a certain time frame, turn them all in, go through an extensive waiting period, get interviewed by a judge if you're in an upstate county, and if you're in like Suffolk County and these downstate places closer to New York City where there's just millions of people and it's more of a blue area, more liberal, they're gonna have probably a police officer or a licensing officer. I don't know how they do it down there, but it's obviously similar qualifications, but a judge is not gonna see you. You're gonna have to get interviewed by them, and they might even ask you about Article 35. Why do you want this? Why do you need this? You're gonna have to answer all the questions on the form that you had to fill out. And one of those questions is, do you want to have your semi-automatic endorsement, rifle endorsement? So even if you wanted to buy a Ruger 1022 or 22 semi-automatic rifle, you're gonna have to get this pistol permit and wait up to 6 months to a year and have no serious criminal history, which is completely unconstitutional in my opinion, because that's meaningful restrictions on common use weapons, such as most weapons nowadays being semi-automatic. So whether it's you wanted a handgun or a semi-automatic rifle, even if it being 22, you need to get this permit. So what you don't need to get a permit for is this. So in New York City and these other municipalities downstate, you know, they have their own restrictions where you have to have a permit even to have a rifle, even if it's not semi-automatic. Something like this in upstate New York, as soon as you get out of that damn city, this is something you can walk into your local gun shop and with a clean record to be able to pass a background check. If you pass a background check to get a job, you know, you're not a felon, you have not committed any violent crimes. This is something that you're gonna be able to walk out with. Maybe if you're under 21, it's gonna take you multiple days. If you're over 21, you know, you're possibly gonna be able to get it the same day after the FBI does their background check. You know, I heard certain things that they want to make a waiting period. The reason they want to do a waiting period is because that'll limit the amount of guns you can ever get in your life, period. Okay? Because as soon as there's a waiting period, that's already imposing meaningful restrictions on your Second Amendment right, because the gun might not be right for you. You might want to go buy another firearm. You might want to go back and sell this firearm back to the gun shop. Then you're going to have to wait another waiting period. Waiting period is completely unconstitutional. Somebody that wants to do harm, it's not going to give a damn about a waiting period. Probably just going to piss them off even more. Probably going to go buy it on the black market. The reason I chose this firearm is because this brand new is around $250. They sell different configurations. Barrel comes off very easily with just the unscrewing of this cap here, which was already a little bit loose. I'll make sure that's a little bit tight. This one has Picatinny rail. This is the security edition. This has the longer 20-inch barrel. This can hold 8 rounds. I recommend getting a shotgun that the two meets the barrel, okay? Because a lot of these hunting shotguns, they don't have that. If you're planning on using this for self-defense, home defense, shit hits the fan, you're gonna want more rounds. Obviously, New York State has a restriction on 10 rounds. This holds up to 8. They sell a hunting edition that comes with 2 barrels, a longer barrel for hunting, shorter barrel for home defense, but it doesn't hold as many rounds as the Maverick 88 security edition. condition. I got this for like 200 bucks. It was used. I should have spent the extra $50 when I went to the gun shop. They're like, man, you could have just told us, we would have ordered you a new one. We would have got you a new one for $50 more. That would have been a lot more worth it because I already had to spend the transfer fee and all the extra stuff when you have a gun shipped into a gun shop. Now with a 12 gauge, you got 3 different types of ammunition here. Your most common is your bird shot. This is for, you know, hunting, skeet shooting, target shooting, just your cheap stuff that, you know, you're not gonna kill the intruder. And you shoot them with that. Your second option, buckshot. This is, you know, kind of in the name. Instead of those small little tiny balls of BBs, you got a lot bigger balls coming out of the barrel, and they sell a lot of different shot sizes for each. So with your bird shot, there's either a little smaller BBs, a little bit bigger BBs. So in bird shot and buckshot, you'll have the option to get either bigger balls, which means you'll have less balls, or smaller balls, which means you have more balls. And also with 12 gauges, you have case length. So this is 2 3/4. You can get Magnum shotguns that can shoot Magnum, and I'm 90% sure this Maverick 88 can shoot 3-inch shells as well, which are a little bit longer. You're gonna have a lot more power. It's gonna have a lot more kick. Bird shot's not gonna have as much kick. This will have a little bit more kick, and this is what it looks like. You have a see-through shell, a bunch of tiny little balls inside here. And then your third option that, you know, there's a lot more different types of shotgun shells, but this is what you're going to be finding in your local gun store, are slugs. So these are actually mini shells, because this is the only type of slugs that I have on me now. I got this way back when. They're only $21 at the time. These are Aguila lead slugs. They're 1 3/4 inches, and actually these can be shot out of most 12 gauges. Holding it upright, it'll cycle properly, but this is premise of it is, instead of little tiny balls, instead of little smaller balls, you have a almost over 50 caliber round coming out of that bore, because you can see how big that barrel is, or how wide it is. This is going to take up that slack. So instead of small balls, this is going to be a slug coming out of that. We don't have the paper target today, but we'll show you guys shooting a few of each, give you my thoughts. And obviously the Maverick 88 isn't the most premier shotgun. There's a bunch of better shotguns out there. If you go with actual Mossberg or Remington or any of these shotguns, you could probably even find the older shotguns out of the catalogs that they don't make anymore. Like I have an Elite King Riot model made in Connecticut. The good thing about this is you can get a brand new one at a gun store for like $250. And you can also get different barrel variants. If shit's the fan, you might want a different barrel variant, because when you got the bird shot, you can go hunting the small game. The good thing about the slugs is you can be able to hunt deer, bigger game with the slugs, because this is like a 50 caliber round. And with these shotguns, you can get so many different options, so many different variants. They sell shotguns out, pump action shotguns with scope attachments, with scope mounts. They sell rifled shotguns, but you can only shoot certain things out of those rifled shotguns. But the point is, in New York State, you can only get a manually operated weapon. So, you know, I know they're selling pump action rifles. There's a lot of different things that you're going to want to get to, like pump action rifle, because a lot of the threats nowadays are going to be wearing body armor. Okay. So a lot of these terrorists, a lot of these people, they're going to be wearing body armor. None of these things are going to stop body armor. Obviously, you know, you're shooting below the waist, shooting into the head. The buckshot, they're probably going to go down. They're probably going to die. You blow their legs off. They're not going to make it, right? You need something that can hit out to longer, mid to long range. So we'll make videos like that in the future. They did sell a AR-15 lower that was a lever action, so you could just put a normal AR-15 upper, because as long as the weapon's manually operated and it's not semi-automatic, you can have all the scary features. So you can have the pistol grip, you can have the muzzle devices, you can have whatever on it if it's manually operated. So, you know, there's a lot of more gray area things like that can turn your normal configuration AR into a bolt action. And having spoken to the people at the Safe Act hotline, they don't like that very much. Like, obviously there's no law on what it says, because just because the AR-15 is a ingenious weapon system, you can turn it from a semi-auto to a bolt action weapon in, you know, less than a minute. But there's nothing in the actual law that says a semi-automatic weapon that can be quickly converted into a bolt action weapon or a non-semi-automatic weapon does not count as a bolt action. They just say if the weapon cannot work as a semi-auto. So if your weapon at that time of you being caught up with the police is not a semi-automatic, and if they go test fire it at the range and it is solely operating as a manually operated weapon, then, you know, you have to fight that in court. This is something we don't have to go into more gray area topics, even if you believe it's not a gray area. You know, they just don't like it because of what those weapons look like. So you might want to go for, you know, a lever action, those lever action AR lowers, but those are really sold out because I've looked into those. But a lot of these old school pump action 30-06s, these old school pump actions, they actually made a patrolman. I think it was like the Remington Patrolman back in California, when after that Hollywood shooting, where it's pretty much it would take AR mags, but it was a pump action rifle. It would shoot 223 or 5.56. So there's a lot of different options out there. We'll get into that in the future, but for now, this is something that is inexpensive because you're going to be spending probably almost $1,000 to $600 to $1,000 for one of those intermediate cartridge pump action rifles or lever action. And the thing is, with a lever action, you might say, oh, a lever gun is good. A lever gun is good. Yeah, lever guns are good for hunting and those types of things, but you got to think most of those bushwhacker rounds, brush rounds, like 30, 357, all those rounds, they're not going to penetrate body armor. So you're going to want something with an intermediate cartridge that is going to pierce body armor and reach out to long ranges, because those rounds don't have good ballistics, longer ranges. So we're going to shoot 2 of each and give you our thoughts on it. Once this weather clears up and I get a lot more free time, I'm going to buy a lot more ammo and be able to give you guys a lot more shooting compilations. I know the shooting compilations have been smaller balls, but we will come out with some better stuff in the future. So we're going to be shooting at that steel plate right there. Start off with the bird shot. So not too bad. Now let's step it up to the buckshot. It's a lot more kick. I don't think I'm gonna shoot that steel plate. Oh. The buckshot, a lot more kick. Let's move on to the mini lead slugs. We'll shoot one of the slugs into the target because it looks like it's still angled down, so it should not ricochet back. You can see one of the things that holds the ammo together before it comes out is one of these plastic wads. It's always good to try to pick these up after you're done shooting, especially on the range. You know, if shit hits the fan and your life's in danger, it's a different. Might not matter to be doing that afterwards. Keep our environment clean, especially when you're out in the great upstate. The reason why it doesn't look like shit like it does in the cities nearby to here is because of people. A lot of the people actually give a damn because it's about the people. It's about the soil and our ties to the soil. We're gonna show you what some of that stuff did because of the fresh lead on the. You can see the one on the far right, that is the slug. You can see they all little tiny BBs all around here. Those are the bird shots. And then you can see like kind of up here, those would be where one of the bigger balls hit for the buckshot. Before I get to an honorable mention today, I would greatly appreciate it if you hit the like, if you hit the follow, hit the subscribe, because it would mean a lot to me to be able to create better film for you guys, get better shooting montages, better equipment. Show me your support for an upstate New Yorker that loves freedom, that loves this country and loves this state, no matter how many people hate on it. I know people will tell me, "Get the hell out of New York, it's horrible, it's this and that." Well, guess what? Our founders, our forefathers, they fought and they died here. There's cemeteries not far from here where there's people that fought in the revolution that are dead in that soil. The Battle of Saratoga, defining moment in our country's history. Defining moment in that war happened not even a few hours from here. And it's sad where the 13 colonies have gone to this day, because most of the 13 colonies are completely communist, and people will be like, oh, communism this, communism that, you can't frag grenades. Shut the hell up. We'll have whatever we want that's legal and lawful. And in upstate, I know there's plenty people complain about the laws and the weather and this and that. Well, guess what? Upstate New York is a complete opposite of New York City. So a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, you're from New York, from that godforsaken city? No, we're from upstate. I graduated in a class of 50 kids in a small town of less than 2,000 people, where we had one gas station, hundreds of acres of woods, lakes, hunting, fishing, swimming, riding dirt bikes down back roads. We still had gravel roads, dirt roads, and the complete opposite of what people think New York is all about. Because most of the people and most of the commerce and all that happens in New York City. And that's another reason why I advocate for upstate New York to become its own state, because a city of people that completely live different lives than we do up here. They're not hunting, they're not fishing, they're not, and some people do that, okay? But but they should have no right over us, because upstate is pretty much a colony to New York City. And no matter what, because there's no electoral college for individual states, so no matter what we do, we always will lose an election, because there's millions of people in Buffalo, Rochester, and New York City. They always will vote blue. They will always overpower us in the country, in the rural areas. No matter if we all vote, we will still lose, because there's just too many people down there, too many people in these cities, and they always vote blue. So no matter what, the governor is always going to be a liberal, and we'll never win. So that's why it's completely corrupt, and we should have our own representation, because they say, oh, we have representation, it's constitutional. We have zero representation, even if it looks like we have representation, because we literally can never win. You know, I love our New Yorkers down in New York City and Buffalo, Rochester, whatever, but you don't like what we believe, and we don't like a lot of the stuff you guys are doing. So how about we just do our own things? How about we just separate and do our own things, right? You can have your taxes, your law, gun control laws, and all your stuff, and we can live our lives and hunt, fish, and be merry up here, and have our freedom, and ride our dirt bikes, our two strokes, and drive our trucks, and live our lives, and worship our God, and take care of our wives, take care of our kids, and take care of our families. Wood in the wood stove. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to give you an honorable mention. Shoot a couple rounds off from my rifle that a lot of people say is an abomination. Yeah, I know. Really, the only difference between this rifle that I got, my AR, and a normal AR is literally the hunting stock on it. So it doesn't have the collapsible stock. It doesn't have the pistol grip. And it came New York State legal like this from Black Rain, and it had the non-threaded barrel on it. Okay, you can tell me all you want. The normal AR looks a lot more sexy. Okay, but just wait until I decide to spend like $4 grand after I get out of my little hole of paying all my bills. Try to get myself, you know, an actual quality like BCM or maybe even Super Duty. And I'll throw an abomination stock on it and make it New York State legal. Gonna have a gun shop do that, because I try to have my gun stores do all the stuff nowadays because of all the laws. Like to have because it's always going to look better in court if someone decides, you know, if 1 second, you know, if some cop is questioning something you have, even if it's completely legal, you know, if it's done by a gun store, you know, you have that also to fall back on. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into this honorable mention, just want to say thank you for watching this far. Go get yourself a pump action shotgun. Go get yourself a pump action rifle if you got the money, if you want to spend the extra money for it. Pick yourself up a bunch of boxes of slugs, buckshot, and birdshot for all three different scenarios you can be running into, and protect your family out there. If you don't got that much money, get the Mossberg or the Maverick 88. If you got more money to spend, go get your quality brands, your Mossberg, your Remingtons, etc. As always, I will see you guys in the next one, and here's a honorable mention. But ladies and gentlemen, I love you all, and I will see you on the next one.